Hello, everyone. Bonjour, Mavo, Zdravo. Welcome to the first event in the new Techfugees Toronto Talk series. I'm Jules Phillips, and along with my Techfugees Toronto co-leads, Olivia Doggett, Munir Nasri, Amy Weinrib, and all our volunteers, thank you for making time in your day to be here with us. A quick overview of how the next hour will go. We'll begin with a brief introduction to Techfugees Toronto. Then Josephine will share a bit about what's happening at Techfugees headquarters. Olivia will then launch into a moderated conversation with chapter leads from Techfugees Nigeria, France, and Serbia, and we'll end things off with a live Q&A. If you have questions for the Q&A, please share them in the chat window. Munir will be tracking them to share with the panelists when the time comes. I've been seeing some good buzz on social media. Please feel free to tag us or use the hashtag TechfugeesTO. You can also connect with our panelists. Their social media handles will be shared on the screen. Here in Canada, it's customary to begin an event with a land acknowledgement. Although we are projecting virtually, we wish to acknowledge this land from which we are presenting today. For thousands of years, Toronto, which was originally called Takaronto by the Mohawk, which means where there are trees standing in the water, has been the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work and volunteer on this land and to further the reconciliation process by sharing this moment of reflection with all of you and honoring the land and the Indigenous presence, which dates back here over 10,000 years. When we launched Techfugees Toronto last fall, we were excited to be the first Techfugees chapter in North America. As Canada's largest city, with a booming tech sector and growing refugee community, we knew that there would be an incredible opportunity to co-create meaningful solutions at the intersection of these sectors. We started our work by embarking on a journey of discovery, asking questions and making connections. We decided to focus our 2020 programming on developing solutions to help solve for housing and affordability challenges in Toronto. But 2020 had other plans. As the entire world locked down, we got together and quickly pivoted our plans. Techfugees Toronto Talks is a virtual conversation series that covers local and global topics related to the Techfugees mandate of nurturing a sustainable ecosystem of tech solutions, supporting the inclusion of displaced people. And since we're part of a global community, we thought what better way to kick things off than by facilitating a conversation with other chapters from around the world. We want to find out what brought them to Techfugees, how they're responding to COVID-19, and to learn from each other. First, I'd like to introduce our speakers. Josephine Goob is an alumna from both Sciences Po Paris and the London School of Economics and Urban Development. She has been coordinating the tech community to create technology for and with displaced people as the CEO of Techfugees since 2015. She sits on the board of the Norwegian Refugee Council and acts as an informal expert for the European Commission on Migration Reforms. She was nominated as one of the top 30 under 30 social entrepreneurs in Forbes in 2016, 17, and 18, and in 2017, she was honored as Digital Woman of the Year in France. Brian Oluwatobi Oyewole is meeting us from Abuja, Nigeria. He is the Techfugees Nigeria co-lead. He's a sustainable development and cultural heritage preservation enthusiast. While trying to find his feet as an entrepreneur, he has been contributing to the success of projects that have inclusion at their core through volunteering. He is currently pursuing an MBA at Nexford University. Joanna Kirk joins us from just outside of Paris. She is the co-lead of Techfugees France. She's an entrepreneur, advisor, and community builder. She co-founded Startup Sesame and founded her own tech PR company. She's an advisor for Techstars and public GovTech startups and was involved in Starther, a nonprofit supporting female entrepreneurs. Filip Milenkovic is meeting us from just outside of Belgrade. He's a founder and lead of Techfugees Serbia. He's an activist with an entrepreneurial spirit. He's also a researcher, entrepreneur, consultant, and writer. He has extensive experience in technology development, the nonprofit industry, public policy, and business development. He's particularly interested in civic technologies and the long-term consequences of exponential technologies. So far, he's founded several nonprofits and 2 companies. But first, please join me in welcoming Josephine.
Thank you so much, Jules. Hi, and I hope my internet connection works. Hi, I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for the team Toronto to organize this. So my name is Josephine, and I'm the CEO of Techfugees. And I thought I would give you a bit of a brief of what is Techfugees, and the best way to do this would use of 2 pictures. The first one is here, as you see a picture of the team behind the Techfugees Global Summit that has different people within it. Some people that are on the core team full-time working for Techfugees, some chapter leads, some people from the board. So what is Techfugees? And then you have all the logos from the Techfugees chapters. What is Techfugees? It's first an international network made of techies, social entrepreneurs, humanitarians, and researchers, all dedicated to work together and share learnings on what are the needs of displaced people on the ground and how or what tech solution could work to help fill out those needs, respond to those needs. And the second picture I wanted to bring you to, that's the second slide, is Techfugees is an impact-driven global organization that was founded in 2015 by the editor of TechCrunch, and it aims to build a sustainable ecosystem of technology solutions supporting the inclusion of displaced people. So what I did was a screenshot of several of our technologies that have been involved or created at Techfugees events and give you a brief description on that. Because at the root of the mission of Techfugees and the origin of it was the fact that refugees more and more are using mobile technology to get access to help and all of the other things in their lives. So when we started in 2015, you have to know that 93% of displaced people who arrived in Europe had smartphones in their hands. And at that same time, you had 87% of people living as displaced people living in 2 or 3G areas. So they had an internet access. Given that these are the numbers in 2015, what do you expect those numbers to be in 2020? And that's basically because we saw this, that for the past 5 years, people in the Techfugees community have created different examples of technology that can help displaced people access health, information, education, and employment. I'll talk briefly about the ones that you see here. The first one, you'll see it's a refugee info screenshot of their Facebook page. What is it? It was part of the first hackathon of Techfugees. A bunch of geeks from Google and other tech companies in London thought we want to bring information to refugees. They have been quite successful at doing this, with more than 1 million refugees relying on their technology to access information as of 2019. MedShare, the second one, was part also of our first hackathon in London. What it is, basically, it's an Instagram for different doctors that are on the field or in hospitals to converse on difficult cases. So what we see is when you're on the field and you're helping refugees in the emergency, you might not have all of the information available as well as resources. And this sort of Instagram helps you talk with someone in Miami or maybe in Brisbane to know about like very specific cases. So it's a super important tool for any healthcare worker on the front line. I'll go quickly to the others, but they should give you a concrete sense of what does it look like to do technology for and with refugees. The third one, Natakalam, is basically very simple. They base the idea that a lot of refugees don't have access to employment, but they do have skills. And one of the skills that a lot of the Syrian refugees had was to speak a very good Arabic that lots of people would go to Syria to learn. And they transformed those refugees in camps into English teachers or Arabic teachers. And so what it ends up to be is not only a connection to the world for these people that are quite isolated, but it's also a source of revenue and a source of sort of dignity getting back. As for the last ones, they're very, I took a screenshot of their Android app page because you can all go onto the Google Store today to have them. Integrate helps refugees in Germany, in more than 50 cities in Germany, to get access to local information in their language. Entourage the Letters helps 250,000 kids to learn Arabic on very basic smartphones, Android most of it, not having to be online, and it's a game, so you learn through playing. And TikTok might be super relevant right now. TikTok helps people get interpretation on demand, especially for refugees who would like to have access to a translator when they're having symptoms of COVID or not COVID. That can be useful. So it's basically what Techfugees is about. It's an international network, and it's lots of different projects that have been related to healthcare, education, and employment. I'll just finish with that. As you know, we're faced with a crisis, and what we realize when it started is that even though the virus doesn't discriminate by gender or race or color of the skin, it will have a bigger impact on refugee communities because they have less good access to healthcare, as well as they might not be able to lock down or socially distance themselves. As such, we wanted to make sure that the community would be here to watch and report on the needs and find solutions. So we created a collective mapping that gathers displaced people, NGOs, members of civil society, innovators from all over the world who are mapping every day the impact of COVID, the number of cases in camps, for example, as well as source existing solutions. So far in the months, we've been able to gather more than 50 collaborators, contributors that are reporting on 150 situations worldwide, and you see the map. And we've had, I'm very grateful for that, the support from research institutions as well as NGOs on the ground, because there's an urgency here. And I'll stop here.
Thank you, Josephine. It's been really exciting to see this global project take shape. So what is the best way for people to keep up with what's happening at Techfugees at a global level?
I'd say go on Twitter, follow us on Twitter, or subscribe to our newsletter is the best way. It's the way you'd like to get information, Twitter or the newsletter. And if anyone's interested to be helping on the mapping, then you'll see it on our website everywhere. It's bit.ly/COVID refugees, and you can get involved.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josephine. And we can share out some of these links with all of the attendees today by Eventbrite. Josephine will be back for a Q&A following the panel discussion. Please share your questions in the chat window at any time. Now I'll turn it over to our panel. Olivia, take it away.
Thank you, Jules and Josephine. Hi, it's so great to be here with everyone. If you haven't checked out the Techfugees Data Hub, it's definitely worth checking out. It's a really cool live project with updates happening all the time, and a really good example of a global initiative where there's so many people that are participating. It's very cool to see how it's been progressing. So now we're going to get up close and personal to see what's happening with local chapters in France, Serbia, and Nigeria. A big welcome to the chapter leads, Joanna, Filip, and Brian. We are so happy to have you with us today. It's wonderful. Maybe just say hi in a quick wave so people can see who you are.
Happy to be here.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're so happy. I'm glad it worked out. It's amazing to have such a diverse range of places here to kind of talk about the same topics. So as we know, Techfugees largely operates as a volunteer organization, meaning that chapters are completely volunteer-led. This requires a lot of passion and dedication on behalf of the individuals that are involved. Each chapter helps serve the needs of their specific community, making each chapter unique. So with that in mind, why don't we start off with hearing the origin story of each of the chapters? Brian, why don't we start with you?
Hi, everyone. Okay, urgent stories, right? As far as the possibly displaced people in Nigeria are concerned right now, the COVID-19 impact, on those camps where they live, it's quite alarming because a lot of them don't even care about the virus. Because I mean, they care first about how they are gonna eat, and unemployment it's a huge problem in Nigeria. It doesn't just have to do with displaced people or not. Even people who have papers and are full citizens, registered, don't have jobs. How much more these displaced people? And one of the things that made me very concerned about the plight of the displaced people is their camps are actually located very close to normal settlements, like just in between settlements, and then engaging with the camps, you find people within the camps telling you, how worried they are about the children in the camps. If they don't get an education, they might turn out to become insurgents, and then they may be the first victims because they are originally victims of insurgency, most of them. And then the people who started these insurgencies from their hometowns they were people like among them, their brothers, people they knew were the ones that became insurgents because of lack of employment and all of that. Okay, yeah, we are trying to solve a problem of employment. It may take some time before we can actually get employment in their hands, but I mean, we realize that some of them have been trained in some vocational crafts, and then like urgently now we're trying to find markets for some of those things that they produce. And then as far as COVID-19 is concerned, I still spoke with a foundation today who might be willing to help with equipping them with face masks, because the situation in the camps it's alarming. They don't even have like access to water, like clean water, so you can't, I mean, asking them to wash their hands from time to time may not be something that is very realistic. Do you get, when they don't even have water? And then if the COVID-19 is already in any of those camps, a lot of them stand the risk of contacting them easily because of how they live. They just basically like almost sleep on each other in those camps. It's so yeah, we're trying to get response for face masks, ASAP, while we're also working on developing an online marketplace for their products at the moment.
Sounds like there's so many very important jobs that are being done right now within Nigeria. So in terms of your chapter, just a quick question: when did Techfugees Nigeria start?
Techfugees Nigeria started in September last year.
Okay.
Yeah, we would have, it would have been better if we could get as many displaced people as possible to be part of our engagements and programs, but that has not been easy because if you remembered from what Josephine was just saying, how, majority of migrants that came into Europe had smartphones. That is not the case here. You get what I mean? A few of them who had smartphones when they came in, a lot of the smartphones right now cannot even do like some basic things, You get, some of them have gone bad, some of them are just maybe outdated. You get what I mean? So it's not been easy engaging. We've been able to engage mostly via phone calls, you know, and going there physically. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Brian. It's really important to get the unique perspective and context of each chapter, and you've provided a really vivid picture of what that looks like.
Thank you.
Joanna, maybe we can go with you next, and hearing just a bit around when Techfugees France started, as well as some of the motivator to that.
Yeah, thanks. So Techfugees France started in 2016. So it was quite soon after the main Techfugees was launched. What happened was that a small group of us, we didn't yet know each other, but we were interested and looking to help with the refugee situation in France for a while, and we saw that Techfugees had launched in the UK. Connected with the community there, and Josephine and the UK group, and the first thing that we tried to do was understand how and if we could help. So a small group of volunteers got together and we organized a hackathon. It was the first hackathon to deal with the theme tech and refugees that was organized in France. And it was a really very, I would say, important moment for us, because beyond organizing a hackathon, which is something that we do in the tech community, it enabled us to learn a lot right from the beginning, a lot that we understood that we did not know. We had a lot of questions and realized that whatever we wanted to do to help and for refugees would not be able to be done without doing it with them. And that was a very important moment for us, because to this hackathon, I think about 150 people came over the whole weekend. People from NGOs, people from grassroots organizations, people from institutions, refugees, enthusiasts that just wanted to help and didn't exactly know how, people from tech companies, and the tech ecosystem. And the other thing that we realized was that in France, all these communities were not actually really speaking to each other yet. We didn't exactly know how the tech ecosystem could help yet. So this was also an important moment for us, because some important challenges and important projects came out of this hackathon. So I would say that that was the way that it launched in 2016. And from then, what we tried to do was build a community with refugees, build a team also with refugees, with people from the tech ecosystem, but also from the NGO and grassroots organizations. We organized then some smaller scale events, such as small workshops and discussions, because we realized that there were some very strong and focused themes that needed to be addressed, such as recruitment, education, accommodation. And that was a way for us, a good way actually for us to actually meet the people who had already been working on these subjects, who had already been trying things out, because we also soon realized that we were going to be able to help on certain things, but on other things maybe not. And some people had already been working for a long time on solutions and startups and organizing things. And as time has been going by, we have been realizing that it's very interesting to actually collaborate and connect with the people also implicated in building solutions and in different organizations. So we continue to organize 1 to 2 hackathons per year, and little by little try to focus more and more on the very precise needs and what we thought we could help the most with. And we, 2 years ago, worked on the fellowship for women refugees pilot, which is taking place this year via Techfugees Global for the 3rd edition. And that was also very, I'd say, important part of the Techfugees France chapter focus. And a last part that I think was important for us here is to work also with how refugees are perceived in France. And so that would mean also trying to show examples of what projects came out of the events that we organize, and what refugees as tech entrepreneurs also do. So that is another part that we've been focusing on and still trying to build.
Thank you so much, Joanna. It's amazing to see the diversity of different programs and events that are happening, even just between hearing you and Brian. We asked Filip, Joanna, and Brian to share a photo, and I think this might be a good time, Joanna, just to share a quick view of one of the hackathons that you've organized. So I'll just share that. Sorry, here we go. This is from one of the hackathons that Techfugees France has organized. Joanna, when did this one take place?
That was in 2018.
Wonderful.
And, no, sorry, 2017, sorry. And it was a hackathon that we organized around sports and how sports can enable, sports and technology can help integrate refugee communities. And we had several projects that took part in the hackathon, and I really like this photo. There's several, I really like the end of event and end of hackathons photos because there's always a lot of emotion, a lot of happiness. Everyone's tired but happy, and most of these people did not know each other necessarily before the event took place, but actually still see each other now. And they're actually the members in these teams here. I can see at least 3 projects that are still ongoing and that have developed since the hackathon. So it's really nice to know that that we had an impact. Yeah, it's nice memory.
Yeah, it's also just sports and tech together. It's a very creative approach to it, and it's also a very fun, it seems like a very fun subject matter. So
it definitely is, yes.
Great. Okay, Filip, let us know about Techfugees Serbia.
Hi everyone. Well, we started in 2016. At that point, like hundreds of thousands of refugees were going through so-called Balkan route, and they were passing through Serbia. Like few contextual notes, like most of the refugees don't want to stay in Serbia, so we were like the passing station. And the second contextual note, we had wars like in the 90s, so there is like some sort of, I mean, people started resonating very early on with people who are coming from many different places, and the crisis was very big. Like the center of Belgrade was full of people who were kind of lost. They didn't know language. They didn't know how to get proper info. They didn't know how to catch any transportation. And a lot of people started doing many different things to help them. So people started providing short-term accommodation. People started providing food, etc. And at that point, we, as like someone, as people from Techies, decided to do the first hackathon. So we did the first hackathon in 2016. It was meant to be Serbian hackathon, but it ended up as regional ones. So we had teams and participants from neighboring countries, and in this case, like Bosnia, Croatia. I think that we even had someone from Slovenia. And our approach was then very collaborative, and our idea was to connect the stakeholders who are already doing things for refugees, meaning many different NGOs, even governments. So we had 10 different partners, and that way we connected NGOs who were already doing stuff for refugees. We involved a lot of refugees and involved tech people. And that event went really good. And it was eye-opener in a sense that the gap was evident. So people who are like NGOs, they don't understand technology. So it was good to connect those sites. And yet again, people who are like really willing to build something don't know what to build. So connecting them with refugees was really great. And some teams even went out of the hackathon building and visited like improvised camps that were in the center of Belgrade at that time. So that way there was some connection that happened, and the projects were good. At that time, Serbia was just a passing station mostly, because everyone was just basically passing by. So all the solutions were like for those on the move. For example, one solution was digital medical records. So all the problems that we were trying to solve were from that perspective. The second hackathon we did was in 2017, and then the situation was slightly different because not that many people were on the move, but rather some decided to stay, and government started providing some support, and some integration started happening. So then we partnered with different organizations, mostly NGOs working in the field of education, because at that time some children started going to Serbian schools, and there was a very big gap in teachers did not know how to organize all of that. So that was the focus of the second hackathon. But now the time is kind of changing, because back then, I mean, Serbia was and still is a polarized society. But back then, sentiment was like mostly welcoming, I would say. But now that's like really shifting. And that's the problem I think needs to be addressed right now, because there's so much hate and even violence, although the numbers are much, much lower. Like, for example, I don't know, at this point, there are several thousand refugees in total, and there are some political parties talking about millions of people. And in the context of a very poor society and very, I mean, it's not a dictatorship, it would be too much to say, but many political actors are using many different tricks to raise the level of hate in the society. And in this context, we believe we need to fight misinformation and fake news, because some people are here staying, mostly waiting to go to Europe, and some local people are actually really hating them and even try to do many bad things. And we had a very recent event, like one guy in his 20s took his car and drove in directly towards refugees, screaming that they're trying to rape his girlfriend, etc. So, for example, many of these things are happening really a lot, and all of that is mostly based on false information and misinformation campaigns. So the sentiment is changing. I mean, of course, like a large part of the Serbian population is still welcoming, but there is this very bad sentiment towards those who are staying here. So that's like how the situation in Serbia progressed. And in the context, like, I mean, government is actually doing a lot. It's mostly aligned on a policy level with the EU in terms of like it's investing in refugee education, it's investing even in housing. But in the context of a very poor society, many people are like trying to find, enemies, and that's like very primitive, old school political narrative that is being used in this particular case lately a lot. So we want to like tackle this problem because it's kind of insane, because I think that like 1 in 10 or 2 in 10 of people in Serbia are displaced because of the wars we had. And most of the Serbian population actually wants to migrate. I think that almost 60 or 70% of youth wants to move. So it's like very schizophrenic. And we have elections coming very soon. And that like, yet again, raises the bad voices, so to say. And that's why we had in mind something to do with Techfugees chapter in Lebanon regarding false information, misinformation campaigns, specifically misinformations that are coming from Facebook groups. So we sketched a research project trying to understand what's happening there. So our approach now is like, it's very hard to debate with people who are driven by false information easily. And there are a lot of like data solutions that are built, and data can be found online, but it's not very well presentable. So people are lame. I mean, they don't want to spend time researching on the web trying to find the actual data. So our thinking is that like if we had like all of that visualized in a very simple way, that can be used, for example, in social media, because when someone posts like something that is factually wrong, for example, million of refugees taking our land, you could just post something that is visualized very well, saying, no, this is not true. Like, I don't know, there's like 4,500 people here, like, etc., etc., etc. Crime rates are not like that much. There are no rapes or stuff like that. So that's that's like few contextual notes from Serbia.
Thank you so much, Filip. It's a really good point around the position of someone that really wants to leave where they are versus someone who is trying to stay where they are, and the type of technology that you would design for those different use cases. They're very different, right? The digital medical record, you do want something that's very portable, and that is really playing into the fact that you can move around easily with it. And I know you also mentioned before that the false information was also something that might have even gotten worse during COVID-19. That was something that was worse.
It much worse. I mean, the whole like conspiracy theory kind of thing. In case of Serbia, like of course, first target Bill Gates, etc., and then the second refugees, and then on top of that, government that is trying to smuggle refugees in because there is some master plan or whatever. So people got like really mad in these I don't know, and that led to actual violence, because that guy who used his car to basically drive into refugees, that video became viral, like I don't know, 500,000 views in one day, etc. And yet again, I have my own theory, which might be right or not. I think it's all part of the election political game, but still, again, I mean, even some of my friends who are not like political at all, and not either, I mean, they're like mostly ignorant toward anything related to refugees. I saw them sharing that, and there is a lot of fear based on false information and campaigns. And there were even some things where, like, for example, one local media outlet used one photo for, I think, Greece, where one refugee woman was surrounded by 3 of her friends or something, and like the title was, I don't know, three Muslim guys trying to rape Serbian girl or something like that. And all of that becomes viral extremely fast. And it's a very big problem. And one component of that I believe needs to be understood as well. Like, I mean, there are some people working in government trying to protect refugees, and if those things catch their minds, that can also lead to bad things. Meaning, for example, violence toward refugees by people working in, say, I don't know, military or police. So that's in our opinion, or in my opinion, thing to tackle at this point.
Thank you so much for sharing the current context with you. We want to leave some room for questions. I wanted to give Brian and Joanna a very quick opportunity to say any last remarks. We were intending to get through a couple rounds of questions, but I think we got some great stories and examples of experiences from each of our speakers, so that's really great. But Joanna and Brian, I know you both reported, just from a chapter perspective, how there was a couple of positives with COVID just around your communication and team. Do either of you just want to speak very quickly to that before we open it up to questions?
Okay, let me say something about the impact of COVID on our chapter here in Nigeria. You know, I would like to mention that Nigeria, we kind of lack the right education, you know, from time. And then we've always had smartphones before the COVID and all of that, but each time we kept saying we needed to meet, we needed to have a sit down, we're trying to have a workshop. I mean, COVID-19 came, and within a month or two of the lockdown, I mean, about 6 weeks, we had our first workshop, you know, which, I mean, we ourselves are beginning to make better use of technologies that are available to us, you know, to move forward. And then COVID-19 has also made I mean, we get to communicate more often now. We are not leaving it until we meet or have a physical. I mean, everybody's turning more to technology, you know. But in regards of engagements with the forcibly displaced, yeah, it's also gone a long way, you know, because our mode of reaching out is still what we have maintained, but it's just we cannot go there physically as much as we used to. And then, but the people in these camps, you know, some of them have been able to break out of the camps. Like, I mean, some of them have been able to set up a farming, an agro community somewhere just right outside Abuja here, you know, where they farm beans, they farm groundnuts and maize, you know. And then this period of the COVID-19 made us, I mean, during this period, I mean, we've been able to get leads on how we can also get markets for those their farm products, and then we have something positive coming up, you know, within a short while. Yeah, so yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you for sharing, Brian. Joanna, do you want to add a bit of context for France as well?
Yeah, well, in our case, it was kind of turned it into an opportunity, in the sense that we, since the beginning of this year, well, end of last year, we are reinforcing the team, and we're welcoming new people in the team, 2 new co-leads that are onboarding at the moment. And so we had planned, as Brian was saying, you know, to do a first workshop and to meet. And I'd planned a meeting with the Techfugees community, and this was changed because of the current situation. But we, in the end, I think, managed to connect with each other quite a bit, actually, through, well, thanks to technology. And it's been quite an interesting experience, in the sense that we realized that some people were actually more available to discuss, to brainstorm, to exchange. So for the moment, it's been rather good for actually really brainstorming and building a new roadmap. But obviously, if it goes on for a long time, then we're going to have to think of different solutions, I guess. And I'd be interested in hearing of any ideas that the community has.
Thank you, Joanna. Okay, Munir, I'm gonna pass it over to you for questions. Hopefully we have a couple for our speakers, and also Josephine as well, who we haven't forgot about you, Josephine.
Yeah, thank you everyone.
I'm really happy, by the way, not to be like, I'm always the one who speaks, so thank you. Go on.
Oh, good. Yeah. We have a question from Amanda. Amanda's asking, what role do you, and this is, to Josephine and the panelists, what role do you think Techfugees and related initiatives could play in strengthening meaningful and informed cooperation between entrepreneurs, grassroots initiatives, and government and academic research communities? And why do you think that could be important?
Okay, I'll take the question. Great question. What to say? We're trying. That's basically. I think I'm happy that in this question you mentioned research institutions and the grassroots entrepreneurs. I think the link is not made actually, and we're trying as much as possible. And Techfugees can be a coordinator of that research, and this is what we see happening on our Facebook group today. We see researchers going on our Facebook group asking for technologists to give them time to understand how the technology is working. And I think our biggest struggle has been at Techfugees is not to find researchers who are researching and producing amazing research. The most difficult has been to get entrepreneurs and grassroots to listen to the researchers. I'll give you an example. A lot of people are replicating other mistakes that other entrepreneurs have done, though there's proven research that it doesn't work. And we're trying to enforce that there's such a huge pressure in time and money into the entrepreneurial sphere that sometimes they don't get down to think. Some people have done it before and they know, and so so if that was an invitation to strengthen that link and to volunteer to help us do that, please.
Yeah, and I mean another question we have is basically, what are some of the most thing that you're proud of, and how would you measure impact, especially right now in COVID? So maybe it can go to the chapters. If you can tell us thing that you've been proud of, and Josephine, on a global level as well, how do you see it?
I'll let the chapter reply first.
Filip, maybe I'll start with you. If you can tell us just a couple of things, thing that you.
Yes, some of the. I think that we actually did this a lot of this, let's say, backdoor kind of thing, where we connected people working in traditional NGOs with some tech people, and some solutions actually ended up in production being used, and that's it was incredible for me how this gap between different sides of the story is big. So that was something that happened not just on the hackathons, but rather even outside of them, because these communities are not communicating. I see that as a big trend. I mean, people who are working in nonprofit industry or UNHCR or whatever are not that familiar with technologies at all. So that was one of the interesting contributions, I guess, we had so far.
Is there anyone else from chapters would like to add anything to that? Or,
Let me just add here.
yeah.
One of the things we are proud of, apart from the workshop we held, an international media organization was carrying out a research on the information needs of forcibly displaced people, and then they found us online, and reached out, because of, and at that point it's not like we had even really done much, but we already had like a direction that we were trying, and based on that they reached out to us, and we were a huge part of whatever reports that they came up with from their research. So that also goes back to what you said about, researchers and governments, because the government, like for example, one of the problems, with forcibly displaced people, their plight in Nigeria is because of the political impact or undertone. Reporters are not able to boldly report exactly what the situation is. A lot of them are scared of what could happen to them if, everybody just wants to follow the narrative of whatever the government is saying, or even like international organizations like the UN. Some of them, like lately, especially since this lockdown, COVID-19, they don't even want to, they are very skeptical about how much information they share with you and all of that. So, it's actually important, through research and institutions, we may be able to bridge this gap, between governance and the plight of forcibly displaced people.
Yeah, so like even if you think about it, and like there's so much inspiration happening around, and so much to be proud of from like all even local chapters and like globally. Josephine, like how Techfugees like mobilized the data hub right now, and I think that's pretty phenomenal.
There's lots. Yeah, I just want to answer, and this is like quickly. There are lots of things to celebrate, a lot of things to be proud of, lots of things where everyone makes mistakes. At Techfugees, we measure our impact with 4 criteria. As I said, we are a network building a ecosystem of technologies and supporting the inclusion of refugees. So the way we measure this is Techfugees in the right place where technology meets refugees? And I think on that level, from 2015 to today, we've been able to have chapters where refugees are and technology is. And we've removed all the chapters that were not in places where all of these two meets. You had lots of refugees with no technology, or you had lots of technology but no refugees. And I'm very happy that we had, like, first chapter was in Toronto and not in the US. But this aside, political statement. So on this, I think we're very glad to be with the pulse of where it's moving. The second thing to measure our impact is to look at the number of refugees, part of our community, that are getting jobs in the tech industry. On that level, if you go on our website, you'll see that the program for that, it's for women only. And we know that latest data from our impact report is 80% of the women going through that program get job offers. So we're very happy about that. And it's like, those women are qualified. The Techfugees didn't empower them to be qualified and all of this. We facilitated their access to opportunities, but at the beginning, they were skilled and talented people. It's really important for us to say this. The third way we measure impact is how many refugees are involved in our operations, the way we work as a team, as well as participants at our events. And this number has increased over time. We aim to be at 50%, like strict. Sadly, we're still like not there. I think the latest number was 33%, but Louise, you'd have to correct me if I'm still like mistaken. Good, I'm on the good number. We're trying to make progress here, but with the COVID, great. But with the latest COVID project, what I see is a lot of displaced people across the world contacting us to provide that data. So I think we'll be able to have more and more of these people involved in what we're doing, and that's fantastic. Lastly, because it's a long description of the way we do metrics and measure our impact, the thing that we're building is like how many of these technologies that are part of our community gets in the hands of refugees are useful to them. And on that level, we have really good response from those technologies that I talked to you earlier. The number of users is growing. And with the COVID situation and lockdown situation, humanitarians are faced with like they must use technology. So when 2 years down we were talking, oh, can we do this project with you? And you know, they're like, yeah, interesting. Now they're like, remember that talk? We need it now. So yeah, anyway, we're very proud of what we achieved, and the fact that we're a big family across the world in 2020 years later is already the biggest achievement.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Josephine. Jules, I'm going to turn it to you just like for some closing remarks. I know we're at the end of our time, so I'm going to turn it to you and from there.
Thank you so much, Munir. And just so everyone is aware, this is really just the beginning of our talk series, and we're just so delighted. I see there's another awesome question there from Victoria about how law firms can get connected to Techfugees. I really hope that everybody takes this opportunity to connect not only with us and Techfugees and all of the chapters, but with each other. And as we wrap up, I'd like to extend a huge thank you to our panelists, Brian, Joanna, Filip, our moderator, Olivia, Josephine, Louise, and the Techfugees International team for all their support, Munir for running a smooth Q&A, Amy for setting us up on Zoom and sharing her tech expertise, our volunteers, Lucia, Jansu, and Gail, who are helping out behind the scenes, and to all of you for being here with us. We really appreciate your time and enthusiasm for our mission. And we hope you can join us for the next Techfugees Toronto Talks event next month on the theme of entrepreneurship during COVID-19. We're focused on connecting, so if you'd like to be on a list of today's attendees and did not have a chance to register through Eventbrite, please email us at toronto@techfugees.com or join our mailing list at bit.ly/techfugeesto, as you can see on the screen there, and we'll send you info about our future events. Until next time, stay well and stay connected. Thank you. Merci.